Welcome to the Stogie Geek Show, episode 117. This episode is sponsored by Mr. J. Savannah Smoke Shop, located in Rhode Island. They have an outstanding selection of premium handmade cigars. And by the Havana Cigar Club in Warwick, Rhode Island. It's a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo. And by A.J. Fernandez Cigars, handcrafted in Nicaragua using the finest materials. Brands include the San Latano, Pinolero, and AJ's recently released New World brand. Visit them at ajfernandezcigars.com. And by Debonair Cigars. Visit stogiegeeks.com/debonair for a list of retailers who carry Debonair. Buy some today and get a little more Debonair. And by Ocean State Cigars. Try the J. Grotto series, including the Connecticut Shade Silk and limited edition J. Grotto Reserva and the new J. Grotto Anniversary lines. Visit them on the web at oceanstatecigars.com. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Stogie Geek Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Very, very excited to be here. I got my Manhattan. I got my cigar. We're ready to have a show. We're joined by a very special in-studio guest. I want to introduce Jay from Spro Coffee, who's going to keep us up all night by giving us coffee. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Jay's going to do a segment. We've got all kinds of – Jay's got a Manhattan, too, and then we're going to drink coffee and we're going to smoke cigars, so it is not to be missed. Jay, you're making coffee that carries the Fratello brand, and we've had Omer on the show. So
right, yes, that's correct.
We're very anxious to speak with you later on. So
I'm jealous right now.
We've got, cocktails, coffee, cigars. We got it all here tonight. Well, you're missing out. I'm sorry.
I'll be up next week, so we can make up
for it. Excellent. Will, welcome to the show. Will's on the lines via Skype from North Carolina.
Greetings, everybody.
Nice to have you. Will, why don't you start us off by introducing the cigar that we're smoking and our very special guest for this evening?
Well, we're smoking two different cigars. I'm smoking a cigar, when we'll get into it, it's called the Morphine. It's one of two sizes in this blend. I'm smoking the Lancero, and we'll get into that because this is a pretty interesting blend, this Morphine. And you are smoking, Paul, the Last Rites, which is a box press Robusto.
Okay. Excellent. It is very much a box pressed Ecuadorian Habano Maduro, Honduran binder, Honduran, and Nicaraguan fillers. So,
yes.
Very good.
Yep. And the cigars are made by a company called Black Label Trading Company, which I've seen they've really gained some traction over the last year in the market space. We'll get into that with the founder of the company, Mr. James Brown. James, Will Cooper in North Carolina, Paul Asadorian in Rhode Island. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Absolutely.
So, James, tell us about yourself prior to getting to the cigar industry. Like, what led you to get into the cigar industry and do your own line of cigars?
I think a couple of things. I started out in the wine industry, so I was a professional sommelier for many years. Working in the restaurant industry, that kind of brought me into cigars. So I've been a cigar consumer for about the past 17, 18 years. And after that, I ended up having a adventure travel company that specialized in Central America. So I spent a lot of time in Nicaragua, and as I did, my passion for cigars and cigar making kind of grew out from there. So the more time I spent in Nicaragua, started playing around with cigars and blending cigars for some of our clients that were on our trips. And at the end of the trips, the clients really fell in love with what we were making, and that kind of spurred the idea that we could take this one step further.
Yeah, it's interesting, James. We haven't talked much about wine here on the show. What are some of the parallels between? I know there's some kind of similarities in terms of having different vintages in wine and describing some of the flavor profiles. It seems to me like the wine industry is even a lot more further along even than the cigar industry in terms of describing the flavors. They use terms like balance and body. So, how did that help you when you were having your own cigar? I'm sure it did.
Yeah, I think it definitely did. I mean, I was very fortunate, to have what's considered a good palate, and the more I started to smoke cigars and smoke different lines of cigars, the more I started to notice the intricate flavor profiles and the differences between not only the cigars but differences in tobacco, and that kind of piqued my interest in blending cigars and playing with all different types and seeing what I could come up with, with different flavor profiles. So I treated it very much the same way as I treated tasting wine.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say when you develop your palate. As a sommelier, like, how did you develop your palate, and did you bring some of that into the cigar industry?
Yeah, so basically you train your palate to recognize certain flavor profiles, certain characteristics. And so I took that same methodology and applied it towards tobacco. So, I basically take the same approach, of just looking for very distinct flavor profiles in certain types of tobacco. And then just kind of deciding, in my head what I want that cigar to taste like, and then, going through trial and error and figuring it out.
Very cool, very cool. So how did you get to start the Black Label trading company and kind of make it its mission to focus on that 100% kind of small batch mentality?
Well, I think we started Black Label to make the cigars that I wanted to smoke, that my partners wanted to smoke, and we kind of, as a consumer, I felt like there was a little bit of a gap in the cigar industry for something unique and something special that I, as a consumer, would be looking for. And so when we decided to go with Black Label, I really wanted to focus on, quality over quantity, and really try to develop some unique cigars and some unique flavor profiles. And we're just not the company that's looking to make 1 million cigars a year. We just want to keep it small and interesting and always add to our line, do a lot of limited releases and things, and just kind of keep developing our ideas for cigar making. And to do that, we keep it small and go with retailers that focus on boutiques and want to offer their customers something different. I mean, that's just kind of what we're all about, is being something different in the marketplace.
So now, are all of your lines small batch?
They are, yeah. So we have what we consider our core line, which is 5 blends. Those cigars, we produce 1,000 boxes a year in 2 to 3 vitolas. Then we have limited releases, which would be Last Rites, Morphine. We're about to launch Deliverance and Catacomb. And those cigars, we produce about 500 boxes a year of each of those. So in the world of cigars, it's really a very small production of what we do.
So take us through some of the lines, James. What were some of the first ones and some of the characteristics and the mission behind some of those blends?
Well, our goal was to, everybody thought we were crazy when we came out and we were going to launch 6 blends at once. But really what we wanted to do was offer something for a lot of different flavor profiles. So we have Royalty and Benediction, which are light white label cigars, and those kind of lean towards the light to medium flavor profile. And then we have Lawless, Redemption, and those in Salvation, and those are basically what we consider kind of our core medium flavor profile. And then with our limited releases, we have Last Rites, Morphine. Those are definitely more in the medium to full body. They have a lot more complexity going on. And we wanted, like I said before, we wanted to kind of have something for everyone in terms of flavors. So we decided to go with all 6 lines straight out of the box. And, people thought we were crazy for doing so, but it ended up working out good in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
in, like, right now, of those 6 core lines, which is the one that's kind of really taken off, if you'd say? The one that's really number one right now?
Last Rites and Morphine, out of our regular, production, Lawless and Redemption are definitely at the top of the list in terms of cigars that kind of hit the perfect flavor profile for a lot of people. They check all the boxes. Hands down, Last Rites is our number one selling cigar. And then Morphine, we didn't really know what to expect when we released Morphine, but it really just blew up for us, and people loved it, and everybody's waiting for June to get the next batch out.
So, like wine, James, do you have different vintages since you're doing a small batch? Like, will you come out with like this year's Morphine and then next year's is that much different?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's produced in batches. I don't know that we'll change the blend on Morphine. We'll keep it as close to the same as we can. But it will be one of those things that comes out at a specific time every year. The tobaccos that we use are, somewhat hard to come by, and so we know what we can produce, which is why we stick to our 500 box limit on it. And that's kind of the thing is, we started with Morphine as our once a year limited release, and now we're kind of adding to that. So we got Deliverance coming out, which is going to be another yearly release. We have Catacomb, which is an exclusive store release for the underground cigar shop. So that's kind of what you'll see is we keep producing our core line, but we're going to be adding some new and interesting things throughout the year.
James, have you ever gotten pressure, for someone who says, we had Andre Farkas on a few months ago, and Andre, when he started out, he actually launched a regular production line with the idea of eventually taking it small batch, and he felt that was kind of a step he needed to take before he went small batch. Did you ever feel any pressure that you had to have something that was regular production, or was this kind of the model you were going to go with all along?
It's kind of it's interesting because we've had the opposite effect. It's kind of the model we wanted to go with all along, but we do get a lot of people that are kind of fearful. They say, especially retailers, they say, what if my customer falls in love with Benediction and then we can't get it anymore, things like that. So our thing is not only being small batch production, we want to really focus on working with a limited number of retailers as well. So we make sure that we can take care of the retailers that we do have, and we don't plan to grow beyond that at this point.
Will, did you have more questions for James? Excuse me for a moment here.
Yeah, while we're, in terms of, so back on the production thing, it sounds like what you have is you have a limited production, so you're going to do an allocation each year. Are any of these like going to be one and dones, or they're strictly going to be more or less these controlled annual releases right now?
I think that you definitely will see some one and dones, coming in 2015. I think Morphine will definitely be a staple for us that you'll see every year. But we have a lot of ideas, a lot of cigars in the works. Some of them are difficult to produce, and we may look at certain productions of doing maybe like a release of 100 boxes, and then you'll never see it again. So we do have some really interesting small production stuff in the works for 2015. So you never know what you're going to see from us, but if things kind of take off and people fall in love with it, we may bring it back. If not, we may just keep producing new releases. But our core line will always be there. We'll always be doing that core line of cigars and just adding things to it.
Is there anything right now that you have, like, in terms of, is there a limiting factor in terms of tobaccos for the blends right now, or is it strictly you're just limiting production to kind of keep it at a certain level?
It depends on the cigar. So with our core line, we're limiting production to keep it at a certain level because we want Black Label. We've kind of taken off over the last year, but we still want to grow it slowly, and we want to grow it organically, and we want to focus on working with shops that really are going to help Black Label grow. So we've basically produced the amount of cigars that we need to accommodate, the amount of retailers that we want to have at this moment. Some of our limited releases, it is actually an issue with getting the amount of quality tobacco that we want for those cigars.
James, with the small batch production, one of the things I've noticed is that sometimes you'll make a smaller amount of those cigars, right? And it's almost like a one and done in some cases. And given that it's a short time period and there's only a certain number, it's difficult to gauge how those cigars will age, right? You almost need your crystal ball. And there are some small batch releases that I've experienced that do really, really well with age, and other ones that, like, oh, this is a totally different cigar, and now it's kind of like not in my wheelhouse anymore after it's aged, and I feel like the small batches kind of suffer from that because it's not, a larger run where they can kind of gauge over time how that cigar will do.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're making a cigar, when you're working with certain types of tobacco, I would say that 100% all of Black Label's limited release sticks are built for aging. Going back to the wine thing, I look at cigars in the same way. Last Rites is a great stick right now, but in a year, in 2 years, it's even better. I mean, our cigars are kind of produced for that, especially the limited release cigars. So that's kind of our focus is, when I deal with tobacco, I deal with it the same way I think about wine. I want something that's in it for the long haul. Same thing. I know people that loved morphine when it came out, and they bought it and they've held on to it, and right now it's just smoking even better than it was when it was released. So that's kind of our goal and focus with our sticks.
Nice. Will, do you have more questions for James?
Yeah, so James, in terms of you're doing what I've noticed is going through the lines. You have quite a few Maduros in there. So as far as producing different Maduros, was much of this by design, and how do you keep the different Maduros from like competing with each other or stepping on each other?
It's true, and I'm kind of a Maduro guy, and I love Maduros, and it's kind of what my go-to cigar to smoke myself. So I love developing them and creating them. But kind of what we did now with Deliverance is we looked at doing a limited release that was not a Maduro, and we did that specifically because we felt like we needed something to kind of showcase a natural wrapper cigar in our limited release lineup. So right now we're playing with a lot of different things, and I think you're going to see a lot of new, interesting stuff from us. You will see some new Maduros, but we're also playing with different styles and different flavor profiles as well.
What I know, like Paul's smoking the Last Rites, and he's using that wrapper has an Ecuadorian Habano Maduro. I'm smoking the Morphine, which actually has the Mexican San Andreas and an Ecuadorian Maduro. It has two wrappers, and I'll ask you about that in a second. But what is like your go-to? If you had to say, which wrapper that you would which is the Maduro you love to work with?
I'm a huge fan of San Andres. I think it's an incredible tobacco. I think it's a underutilized tobacco. And I think if you treat it the right way, you get really unique and distinct flavor profiles out of it. Don't get me wrong, I love the Ecuadorian Maduro as well. I'm kind of a rustic cigar guy. I love not only the flavors of the San Andres wrapper, but I also love that very rustic look to it. So for me, I would have to say San Andres.
And it's interesting because I'm smoking the Morphine, and I made the comment. So this was a unique cigar. I really like this cigar, as I've told you. It has two wrappers, and it has an outer wrapper and an inner wrapper. So, I've seen a lot of cigars that have two binders. Why two wrappers? What is the difference between having a cigar with two wrappers versus two binders? And when I say two wrappers, to the audience, this is not a barber pole. So there's literally two wrappers on this cigar.
Yeah, there's literally two wrappers. Double binder is kind of an old school thing, and when we started to develop the Morphine, it's a big flavor cigar, a lot of Ligero, and we found that as we started experimenting with it, getting a big cigar out of it. We were getting flavor out of it, but it was kind of not well rounded. It was a little bit, kind of hit and then gone. And I wanted to develop something. It just had something missing in it in the depth of flavor. And so, what I love about the Last Rites is that rich, intense creaminess that you get from the Ecuadorian Maduro wrapper. So, just kind of out of the blue, I said, you know what, I want both of these flavor profiles in this cigar. And we just randomly started, playing with the idea of having two wrappers on it and, rolled a few up and tried it out, and it worked. It just added that extra depth to the cigar that we felt like it needed. So it was just kind of a trial and error experiment.
So I actually, I haven't pulled it off to see it, but that inner wrapper, that's a wrapper quality leaf you're using then, as opposed to a binder quality leaf.
It is, exactly. It's the exact same wrapper leaf that we use for the Last Rites.
Okay.
So, James, I'm sorry. The new Catacomb project. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we had a lot of people, talk about doing exclusives and things like that, and we were kind of on the fence about it. But then, Don Wiggins from Underground Cigar in Fort Worth, which is kind of interesting because we started business at the exact same time. He opened his shop and we launched Black Label. And, over the last year, we've kind of grown together, and he's been a huge supporter of the brand. And, he just, out of the blue one day said, would you be interested in doing a cigar for the Underground? And, for me, it's just kind of, I've just been waiting for him to ask, because I think it's a great fit. I think the two brands go together perfectly. And, I know Don, I know, what he likes. And so we talked about it a little bit, and, kind of went over different options, and Catacomb was kind of born as, our first shop exclusive. So we're really excited about it. It's a very small production of 250 10-count boxes, so the smallest production that we've done. But I think it's a really unique and great cigar.
Now, it's interesting with Underground. I had heard of Underground, and I just thought it was the name of a Facebook group. And then when the cigar was, when you sent me the info on the deliverance, I found out it was a cigar shop. But that Facebook group's a very interesting group. It is a real passionate boutique. I can see where the fit is with that, just from that group, because it's probably one of the more active cigar Facebook groups I've seen in social media out there.
It is. It's a very unique group, and we can't thank Underground enough for the last year of working with Black Label. I mean, we've been very fortunate, that a lot of the members of the Underground are big supporters of our brand, and they do everything they can to promote us. And so for us to make a cigar for them, it was really not only a great opportunity to make a good cigar, but also to kind of give back to them, and give them, an awesome stick that is kind of unique to them, and no one else is going to have it. And just to kind of say thanks for, everything the Underground's done for us over the last year.
When I looked at your list of retailers you were carried in, at least before the show, it seemed like it was mostly in the Texas, Louisiana area. Has that kind of moved out of that area? Because you guys seem to have a very busy IPCPR this year. When I was over there, you guys were definitely rocking.
It has, yeah. I mean, we've definitely grown. I mean, at the beginning of this year, if you would have told me that Black Label was going to be where it is right now, I don't know that I would have believed it. We've been very lucky, and got, we have great fans, great retailers. And yeah, I mean, we went from, basically being in Texas to, after IPCPR, we're in, about 70 retailers in about 25, 26 different states. So, we've kind of blown up a little bit after it. So it's good. Yeah, we've grown quite a bit.
James, what other cigars do you like to smoke? I mean, in the blending process, I'm sure you're trying other people's cigars and kind of getting some ideas. So what other things are kind of on the tops of your list of things you like to smoke in terms of cigars?
Um, I love to also support small producers and small production companies. I'm a big fan of Fred and Nomad. I've always been a big Tatuaje fan. I think Pete Johnson is an inspiration for a lot of people in this industry. Um, you know, Ezra Zion, a lot of, just kind of a mix of a lot of the small companies. Skip Martin with Roma Craft. I'm from Austin, Texas as well. And, I just like to support those guys, and I smoke a lot of their sticks. And,
What's your favorite Tatuaje?
I like all the TAA stuff. I really like the Double D. A lot of the smaller run production stuff. If I had to pick a favorite, I like the Anarchies actually.
Really,
I think that was a great cigar.
Those got better with age. Well, what did you think of his latest Monster release?
I haven't had it. Yeah, I haven't had it. So.
What did you think of his other Monster releases?
I liked him. Yeah, I think the Face was probably my favorite.
Yeah,
great cigar.
Great cigar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Face cigar is one of the ones that brought together myself and Mark Jr., who also comes on the show. So I had an extra box of them, and that's kind of what sparked our friendship. So that cigar holds a special place in my heart. And I think his latest one, James, if you haven't smoked it, you're going to be very pleasantly surprised. I think it, in my opinion, not that Pete puts out a bad cigar, but the bar is very high for those Monster releases, and this is his best release in some time, probably since the Face. So
great, yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. So, what other people in the cigar industry do you admire, James?
Like I said, it's there's a few. I think there's obviously kind of the icons. Pete Johnson, Jonathan Drew. The people that kind of made the way for people to come in and start smaller companies, and that for me, kind of hits home. Skip Martin, who is doing his own thing and developed his own factory, and so all those guys, anybody that's small and out there and hitting it, and getting to the shops themselves and pushing their brand. I have a lot of respect for that. So, I'm in those same shoes, and I can definitely relate to all those people.
With being a smaller company, small batch kind of production, what's concerning most about the looming FDA legislation for you?
I think my concerns are kind of the same as everyone. I think it's going to affect us all, and it's one of those things where, unfortunately, I think that a lot of those things have been on the table before, and haven't come to fruition. And it's the unfortunate thing is it's a very unknown. We don't know what to expect from it. So I think like other manufacturers, we're just kind of prepared for the worst, and we'll see what happens when it comes, and make the adjustments that we have to.
Will, do you have any final questions for James?
Actually, there was one I wanted to ask, and I missed it earlier. James, in terms of the blends you have, are they all coming out of one factory, or are they coming out of multiple factories right now?
All coming out of one factory, yeah. So we work in one factory. We have our own team that we work with. Very small. We work with six rollers, so 3 pairs. We have one specific person that handles all of our wrapper leaves. And we keep it very small. We want to make sure that the same hands are making all of our cigars. And we roll very few cigars a day. We roll around 150 to 200 cigars a day, just so we can always maintain that quality that we strive for. We keep it all in the same place, all very small, and it's a very close team, very close family, and we hope to keep it that way.
Do you have any 60 ring gauges in the line?
We do, yeah. All of our core line is available in a 6x60.
Okay. Yeah, I've smoked more of the limiteds, and I noticed they're definitely skewed to the connoisseur sizes, a lot of them.
Yeah, so we started out not wanting to make a whole lot of vitolas. We wanted to keep things very small and make the cigars and the vitolas that suited them. And during that time a year ago, 660s worked really well for us. They still do. We still produce them, but we've kind of looked at a lot of our line, and we over the last year, actually at IPCPR, we launched some new smaller ring gauge vitolas in that line. So we have a Corona now in the Royalty, Toros. The Last Rites is now available in a Petit Lancero. So, and I think you'll see that kind of over the next year for 2015. Everything that we're working on is going to be more in the smaller ring gauge size.
So it's safe to assume, are you a big ring gauge smoker, or do you not prefer big ring gauge? And what's the size you prefer?
I do not prefer a big ring gauge cigar. I'm a huge Lancero fan, so when we decided that we were going to do morphine in the Lancero, that was I was so excited to produce our first Lancero. I would have to say, if I had to pick one Vitola as my favorite, probably like a Corona Gorda, like a 5.5 by 48 would be my preferred size.
Yeah, I think we're asking that question to every guest, and I don't think we've had one manufacturer say they went to the 60 yet. It's kind of, so I'm going to keep asking until someone does.
Yeah, I think I can only speak for our cigars, but I think our 60s they smoke really good. I love the Last Rites in a 60. We do it in a box press. We do the Redemption in a box press 6x60 as well, and I think I don't think they suffer from being in a larger ring gauge. But just me personally, as a smoker, a large ring gauge cigar is not my preferred choice.
But I understand. So in Deliverance and Catacomb, when can we start expecting to see those?
Yeah, so Deliverance launches November 13th. We have a launch party at Sirius Cigar in Houston. And then Catacomb will be launched at the UG November 22nd. So
it's big months for you. Big months for you.
Yeah, November's going to be huge for us. So we're excited to get those cigars out there and get some feedback and get people smoking them.
Excellent.
James, are you ready to play 5 questions with the Stogie Geeks?
Sure.
3 words to describe yourself.
Am I allowed to swear?
Absolutely. Curse all you want.
Badass motherfucker. Is that 4 words or 3 words?
Yeah, we can hyphenate. It's all good.
We'll count it, and we're not FCC regulated, so you can say what you want.
That's good. If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Chainsaw.
If you were to write a book about yourself, what would the title be?
The Black Album.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
I think first.
Pick 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Oh, wow.
That's a tough one, I know. Take some time.
It's a tough one.
Think about it.
Willem Dafoe and Anne Rice.
Nice. Very good. James, thank you very much for appearing on the Stogie Geek Show.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful having you. With that, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about coffee. We're going to talk about Stogies of the Week and whatever else Will tells me that we have to talk about tonight. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.